History of my oldest ancestors of whom I am very proud descend. June 21st, 690, born, Charles Martel, my 38th grandfather, 25 times my grandfather, King of the Franks, Duke of Austrasia, Neustria, and Burgundy, founder of the Carolingian dynasty, hero of Christianity and greatest domus and princeps et dux Francorum, as he called himself. Charles Martel, King of the Franks, Duke of Austrasia, Neustria, and Burgundy, was born in Herztal on June 21, 690 and died in Cuirzy-sur-Oise on October 22, 741. He was the son of Pepin of Heristal, mayor of the Palace of Austrasia, and of Alpader of Saxony, paternal grandson of Ansegisel, mayor of the Palace of Austrasia, son of Saint Arnulf of Metz, 27th Bishop of Metz, and Saint Beggar of Landen, daughter of Pepin of Landen and Saint Ida of Nivelles. Carolus Martel, in Latin, Carolus Martellus, 21 was butler of the palace from 717 to 741. This position was common in the Merovingian dynasty, started by Clovis, due to the fact that the kings of this dynasty were considered indolent, lazy. Those who actually governed were those who occupied the post of butler of the palace, also called mayor of the palace, Duke of Austrasia and de facto king of the Franks. Illegitimate son of Pepin of Herztal, mayor of the Palace of Austrasia with his concubine Alpader of Saxony, and born in Herztal, in what is now Wallonia, Belgium, Charles Martel expanded his rule over the three Frankish kingdoms, Austrasia, Neustria, and Burgundy. Carolus Martel is best remembered for winning the Battle of Poitiers in 732, traditionally considered the action that saved Europe from Muslim expansionism that had already conquered the Iberian Peninsula. From then on there were no more Muslim invasions in Frankish territories, and Carolus Martel's victory is considered decisive for medieval history in that it contained Islamic expansion in Frankish borders. Although initially remembered simply as the leader of the Christian army that prevailed at Tours, Charles Martel was a true giant of the early Middle Ages. A brilliant general in an age deprived of this talent, he is considered the father of Western heavy cavalry, of the chivalric orders, and founder of the Carolingian Empire. Pepin the Short, his son, would give the name of the Carolingian Empire after Charles Martel and not due to Charlemagne, grandson of Charles Martel, and a catalyst for the feudal system that would follow Europe through the Middle Ages. Although recent academic discoveries suggest that he was more a beneficiary of the feudal system than an agent causing social change. He was mayor of the Palace of the Frankish Kingdom of the East from 717. In 731 he took the reins of the entire kingdom. He received the title of Hero of Christianity from Pope Gregory III. Origin of the Carolingian dynasty. In 737, at the end of his campaigns in Provence and Septimania, King Theodoric IV died. Carolus Martel, who called himself Maior Domus e Princeps et Dux Francorum, did not designate a new king and no one acclaimed him. The throne remained vacant until the death of Carolus Martel. As historian Charles Oman states, he was not concerned with titles as long as the power was in his hands. The last 4 years of Carolus Martel's life were more peaceful than the rest of his government, and most of his time during this period was spent on administrative and organizational plans to create a more efficient state. However, in 738 he compelled the Saxons of Westphalia to pay him tribute, and in 739 he controlled a revolt in Provence, with the rebels under the leadership of Maurontus. Carolus Martel dedicated himself to integrating the distant domains of his empire into the Frankish Church. He created 4 dioceses in Bavaria, Salzburg, Ratisbon, Freising, and Passau, and handed them over to Archbishop St. Boniface. Boniface had been under his protection since 723. In fact, the saint explained to his former friend, Daniel of Winchester, that without this, he could never administer his church, defend his clergy, nor prevent idolatry. It was Saint Boniface who decisively defended Charles Martel in his actions of taking ecclesiastical lands to pay for his armies, at the time of the Battle of Tours, as something he had to do to defend Christianity. In 739, Pope Gregory III asked Charles Martel for help against Liutprand, but Charles did not like the idea of fighting his former ally and ignored the papal request. Regardless, the papal appeals for outspoken protection showed how far Carolus Martel had come since the days when he was subject to excommunication, setting the stage for his son and grandson to reorganize Italy to satisfy the papacy and protect you. Death. Carolus Martel died on October 22, 741, in Quierzy-sur-Oise, in what is now the Picardy region, in France. He was buried in the Basilica of Saint Denis in Paris. His territories were divided among his adult sons a year before he died. To Carloman he handed over Austrasia and Alemannia and Thuringia, with Bavaria as a vassal, to Pipino the Short Neustria, Burgundy and Provence, with Aquitaine as a vassal, and to Grifo he left nothing, although some sources indicate that Carlos Martel intended to give him a strip of land between Neustria and Austrasia. Edward Gibbon declared Christendom continued by the genius and good fortune of one man, Charles Martel. Marriages and descent. In 705, Charles Martel married Rotrude of Treves, my 38th grandmother, 25 times my grandmother, from whom he had Carloman, mayor of the Palace of Austrasia, my 37th grandfather, 15 times my grandfather. Pipino the Short married Berta de Lane, my 37th grandparents, 11 times my grandparents. Hiltruda married Odilo, Duke of Bavaria. Landrada. Alda de Franca married Count Valberto, my 37th grandparents, 10 times my grandparents. Then, Carlos Martel married Rudida, cousin of the previous one, from whom he had Bernard, abbot and count of St. Quentin. In 725, Charles Martel married Swanequilda of Bavaria, my 38th grandmother, 24 times my grandmother, from whom he had Griffin, count of Mans. Hors de France married Thierry First d'Orton, my 37th grandparents, 24 times my grandparents, and married Maki Ben Habibai David, my 37th grandfather, 15 times my grandfather. With Rot Aida, he had Jerome, abbot of St. Quentin. Remigius of Rouen, bishop of Rouen.